All right, we got people filing. That's always a good sign. And we got people covering North America and Canada, so we're going way more than we normally do. Bryna and Meredith, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much. This is such an amazing group of panelists and clearly a good group of people joining. So I'm super happy to be here.
Good. We're excited to hang out together. For those of you that are filing in, we'll probably be starting in about 4 minutes. So at the O2, depending on where you're at, and we'll get things going promptly. We'll cover a couple key housekeeping items, and we'll just get right into the good stuff. For those filing in, we're going to try something new here. So we're going to be slightly more interactive than normal. And that means that if you can go ahead and do me a favor, either scan this QR code with your phone, or go to menti.com and enter in that 8-digit code. There'll be certain points as we talk throughout this time together. They can actually jump in. We'll ask you to vote. We'll give 1-minute timers. So when you open that QR code, it's going to be a blank screen until we get to the right slide. So don't freak out. But it's a cool little thing that we're going to try. I'm just curious to see what people will have to say about certain topics that we covered today. I also was told that the drinks can be drank beforehand. Mine's says for 2, so I don't know if they're shaming me for pouring the whole thing in one shot, but we will be having a representative from Drinksmith join us. His name's Huck. We'll cover that in the agenda about midway through, and he'll walk us through some of his creations and some general mixologist vibes, so I'm excited for that. Brian and Meredith, what's the weather like up there in Canada? I know for Texas, it's hot, but it's also like weird, humid, rainy type of vibes here where I'm at. What's it look like for you?
Well, I'm in Toronto. So in Toronto, at least, it's still very hot. We're having a lingering summer. I think it is, I mean, for all my Celsius people, it's about 32 degrees Celsius here today. So we're still having a pretty hot September, which is a good thing because winter will come in real quick. So we have to.
I guess it will.
Time.
Yeah, it's nice and warm. It feels like it's still summer, which is amazing, right? We want this to last a little longer. I don't know who on the call experiences winter in Canada, but winter in Canada.
I can't say that I have, unfortunately. So I'm usually stuck in the humidity, and all my coworkers in Charleston with Good United know the same. We're running nice and hot. I'm looking down the list. A lot of great attendees, a lot of people I don't know. I'm still relatively newer to the GU team for about 4 months now, but I see a lot of support from our office in Charleston. Ladies, do you see anyone that looks familiar as people keep on filing in here?
Yeah, I think we've got a few people. We've got some awesome customers. We've got some amazing people from around the globe. So welcome. Thank you so much for attending. We're so excited. I think there's an old colleague of ours on here.
And we got a lot of good people. I'm excited for this. And we should have a few more filing in. Thankfully, we're smart enough to start this a few minutes after the top of the hour just to make sure everyone can file in. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to stop my share. I need to turn the tunes off here so we don't get too crazy distracted. And let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and bring back up my screen. And let's get moving. So as we go through, welcome to what is our first nonprofit growth lab. I'm really excited about this series. My name is Adam, and we'll get into the more detailed who we are in just a second. But I want to cover a few quick things in terms of just general what to expect today. Roughly, we have about an hour and a half, give or take, earmarked for a lot of different things going on. We've got a great social fundraising equations panel. We have a really cool happy hour chemistry drop-in from Huck of Drinksmith. You all should have gotten, if you sign up early enough, these drinks. And if you missed it, apparently it's okay to open these up. You can drink them now if you want. You should have 2 in your hands. Just a fair warning, these do say for 2 on the label, which instantly made me think that I'm drinking way too much in one shot. I poured it all at one point. This session will be recorded. So I know a lot of questions, hey, I'm not able to make it, or I have some parts of this that I want to send to a coworker or a peer. We will have this up and running and available on demand shortly after this wraps. Shortly meaning it could be tomorrow, but there could be a chance it could be Monday, depending on how fast the upload goes, right? Also, another cool thing too, I have a whole bunch of team members from Good United here in the chat for Zoom. So if you have any questions as these lovely ladies and I talk through the conversation points today, or even the open Q&A at the very end of things, feel free to just drop that into the Q&A in the chats. Either myself, my lovely lady co-host here, or any of my team will be able to pick that up. If we see something that's super interesting, we'll call it out right here. Plus, we have some really good Q&A options at the very end that we wanted to take some time and just kind of open it up for anything and everything that we could answer. And finally, closing time, next steps, what that looks like. Keep hydrated throughout the course of this, please. I did forget water, so we'll see how this goes. So with that, let's keep things moving. Today's scientists, because we want to keep with the Nonprofit Growth Lab theme, right? My name's Adam, and I've been with Good United for about 4 months now. I have about a decade worth of B2B enterprise experience in marketing, customer success, support, and sales. So a lot of my viewpoints will be brought from that more enterprise B2B aspect, especially as, you know, I've spent the last 4 years too serving in a small nonprofit in Florida from the marketing aspect. So I'm not new to this, right? And then also I'm joined by 2 lovely ladies that we've gotten to meet on the Good United team over the last handful of months, Bryna and Meredith from Fundraising KIT. I'm going to pause here. Let's see, give me what y'all do over there and then how we ended up together.
Go ahead, Meredith.
Yeah, I mean, I can go first. Hi, everybody. I'm Meredith. I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at Fundraising KIT. I am also a former fundraiser. So I have worked primarily in peer-to-peer, in sponsorship, and in corporate giving for nearly a decade at a variety of organizations here in Canada. So I'm excited to be here today. I'm reasonably new to the Fundraising KIT team, but I'm really excited. I always love connecting with other like-minded fundraisers, and thank you to Good United for putting this all together.
Yes, thank you so much for hosting this and for an incredible panel with amazing questions and clearly an awesome attendee list. We're so excited. My name is Bryna Dillman, and I also come from the nonprofit sector prior to Fundraising KIT. Worked for over 15 years in executive level roles supporting the financials, the budget, the data, the analysis, as well as all the fundraising strategies for a national organization. So a lot of you who are here today, I relate to all the things that you're going through, and I am so excited to be here and to support you. And of course, Fundraising KIT is an amazing organization to work for. It is a platform that allows nonprofits to see everything in their database, and using a little bit of magic and AI and support, we tell you who is your next major donor, how to keep retention. And if I had this tool when I was in the nonprofit sector, I'd be raising a lot. So I'm very grateful to be here with this awesome group of people, and of course, Fundraising KIT.
Cool, that's perfect. And I guess I should probably mention Good United is really what we do is we help nonprofits use social media through a mix of human intuition, a little bit of magic on the technology side, and AI driven aspects to help nonprofits be more efficient. And we'll talk about some of the high level data points about what we do or how we view things and view the world, especially when it comes to Facebook fundraising and the meta giving tools that are available. Before we start off here, let's get things moving. And if you didn't catch the QR code, you can still go to menti.com and use the code 29240395. But let's take a minute here. I'm really curious about what the level of commitment to social media fundraising strategies are for your nonprofit, right? AOL Instant Messenger, I think I still have that. I know my wife's screen name. I won't out her on this one because it's super embarrassing. All right, Sweet Kisses 88, was it Sweet Kisses 84, I think was it is. So she's outed. But it's really interesting. I know from my nonprofit experience in the volunteer side, we end up having an older group in demographic and personas that we serve. So it's less of an impact for me. It's still at traditional email, and we'll touch on the persona aspect as really supporters change and you start to see millennials and below start to move into that more prominent fundraising aspect and roles. It's different. It's different. The TikTok videos, the Facebook efforts, they start to make a difference and they compound pretty dang quick, right? So we got another 10 seconds. Get your votes in now. It seems to be pretty interesting. Actually, I expected a little bit more on the testing side. And that one person, luckily I can't see who does these. Otherwise I call the AOL user out still. Okay, interesting. So pretty even spread in the middles, a couple that are all in, which is great to see. And oh goodness. And I had one person in the questions ask, what is AOL? I'm too young for this. Grace, I'm sorry. Yikes. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do here, and I have my notes. I'm going to keep glancing down. I'm going to leave this to our faces here. So the first things first, but where is that exactly when it comes to social media equations? And for me, and that poll kind of helped us to get a grasp of where things are. It was, where the heck do I even start? And for me, as I'm talking to more and more nonprofits from my role now and previously, it's and really from the enterprise background, it's like you got to go to where your supporters are, but not just where they are and who your supporters are now, but think about 5-10 years down the road. Where are those new batch of supporters hanging out? I think I'm a geriatric millennial technically. So I'm still not grasping the TikTok aspects. I'm still old school and hanging out on the Instagram, but I do think my parents use Facebook way too much, so I tend to stay away there. But when I donate, I'm going to Facebook first. I'm not going to the website. I'm going to Facebook because it's easy. I could do it from an app. The buttons that Facebook has put into their giving tools are so phenomenal. When I could just click, and all of a sudden they have my credit card info, and I'm supporting every organization I can. But that's also my age group, and we have a few slides here to talk about persona specifically. But ladies, from your point of view, I don't know if you fit in that geriatric millennial aspect like me, but what do you lean into in terms of when you support the missions and the brands and the nonprofits, and what's your go-to?
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say, is it middle-aged to geriatric millennial? Maybe. I don't know if that's the right term either, but I would say that's probably where I am. I mean, speaking for Canada, at least, if you're looking for Facebook giving for social media giving, we're a little bit more limited up here. So things like Instagram, TikTok, we don't quite have those abilities here yet. So I would say the majority of our focus is really on Facebook giving. Yeah, that's where I would tend to go. There's so many options now for nonprofits and for individual fundraisers. That would usually be my first stop.
I agree. And, Facebook, I'm not going to tell you which group I belong in, but Facebook is, from a user experience, especially in, Canada, it's so easy to be on your laptop doing your work and having it kind of next to open browser to be able to search out an organization. Sometimes I even want to know, wait, what is the name of this, organization? There's a lot of nonprofits that have similar names or similar terms. And you're like, how is this different? And sometimes that Facebook just about us is a little bit easier than their website. So sometimes even just for knowledge and then understanding who they are, but also in terms of a LinkedIn kind of connection, you're like, oh, who's on Facebook that I know? So it's an opportunity to network, which I don't know how much of that right now is on the other platforms like Instagram and TikTok. And maybe those who are on it can let me know or let the group know, because obviously we're a little bit, more steered towards Facebook. But I think it's an opportunity, again, just to get that insight. And, just like a lot of CRMs and management platforms, a lot of nonprofits started out with Facebook a while ago and have built up a lot of individuals who have liked and responded and who communicate on that platform. And to stay there, again, is an opportunity, because you can always find ways to bring them there as well as meet them there where they're at.
Imagine that. And the other crazy thing to me too is you think about from again, going to my marketing brain, how do I assess a channel if it's actually valuable to go after? And from a tactical perspective, I'm thinking about, do I have budget to go run ads? Is this something that even just simply, if you're a 501c3 nonprofit in North America, if you don't have the Facebook giving tools turned on and haven't done that, you're leaving money on the table. Like, it's easy to go do and process, and Facebook gets you up and running right real quick. And then you have access to things like tracking, like the birthday fundraisers. And we've all seen our friends who want to raise $100 instead of a birthday gift for a cause that they support, right? I think what I've outlined in my notes here too is, do you have the team to support the potential kind of venturing into Facebook ads and that whole world? It's not easy. I have many peers and colleagues that at the enterprise level have blown through money way faster than they should, because it's just not always the easiest thing. So for me, it's understanding, and what we recommend is like, hey, if you're a 501c3, go get giving tools turned on. You don't have to spend a dime. That's just free money in your pocket, right? If you want to accelerate that, do you have the ad spend, and do you have the expertise in-house, or is that something that you need to think about bringing on external resources to help with? The cool thing too is you start getting the Facebook giving tools turned on. You start seeing that people support you. Like Nick, our CEO and founder, always tells a great story about how just checks started showing up for the nonprofit he supports and runs, right? Similar to that, like that's great. Money in the mail, I didn't expect. But it's a little bit different for Canada, right? And I have these in my notes to check on. And what does that look like for people who are running nonprofits in Canada? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in Canada, it's really easy. If you have a charitable registration number for your organization, there's a good chance that you are already set up, or at least already listed as a possible beneficiary on Facebook. I think when they set it up, because in Canada, they only, pay you through a third-party vendor like PayPal. They didn't need to collect account details or anything like that. And they were able to kind of build that infrastructure already in Facebook for Canadian nonprofits. So if you're not already on it, but I would recommend checking if you are, if it's something that you're venturing into, all you need is that charitable registration number and then some very basic information about your organization. As some of us who have kind of dabbled in it already, for those who are new, it came with some challenges. And I see, a former colleague of mine on this call right now, and her and I used to work together. Hi, Megan, at the Heart and Stroke Foundation. And I remember meeting with her about like, what do we do with this information? Because when it comes to you, it comes through PayPal giving, and it's quite limited. It doesn't give you a ton of information about your donors. And that's because of privacy restrictions with Facebook and with PayPal giving. So you won't be able to get that information from them. Believe me, I tried. I did everything I could think of, couldn't get it. But it's come a long way in Canada from when it first arrived here. And with features like, Facebook Live, being able to have a donate button on it, or hosting online events through Facebook, it's worth it to set up, even if you are getting that limited donor information, because even if you're not able to pull them into a stewardship journey or whatever it may be, it does increase the chances that they will see more of your content. They're more likely to sign up for other things that you're doing, support your next campaign, and you'll be able to kind of steward them in the way that you want down the road.
Well, even and this is a question for the panel or anybody on the call now, from the nonprofit side, there's no necessarily schooling that these nonprofits have gone through in order to create these posts, to do Google ads, especially on these social media platforms, which kind of came about when these organizations were kind of like, okay, let's set this up and put it out and make money on this new medium and this new platform. And I found that there was a lot of hesitation just because there wasn't necessarily a structure or a template, or other people are doing it differently, but their cause was different. So the way in which they set it up was different and interacted was different. And so I wonder if that's sometimes the hesitation with social media, particularly Facebook, is that there isn't necessarily that guide. And I don't know, Adam or anyone else on the call, like what your thoughts or experience in that regard is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat too, and I just got a note. The chat function is malfunctioning, so use the Q&A function for Q&A. Any points out here. I think I've got a great team in the background trying to figure out what's going on there, but the Q&A button, everyone should have that. Use that and spam that out. And I'm going through, answer that. AOL, rest in peace. So All right. And Grace says, let's make it a party. So we're going to make the best of technology here. And I think also getting into that data aspect, I do have a whole bunch of thoughts. However, I have bullet points too later on. Can we high level? Yeah. So like the problem, not the problem. I think the big challenge that a lot of nonprofits face is if they have fundraising tools turned on, what in the world does that actually look like in terms of, sure, we got money, but cool, what next? And I think it's always that what next question that for me and my team, we really try to answer specifically, and data and being able to pull data out of the Facebook giving tools, specifically if we're talking about that here, and then being able to attribute that to the stories that humanize the numbers, right? There's a cool couple things we do in our dashboard that does that. But like, if you don't have a vendor that you're working with, if you're going and starting to tow and jumping into that pool of spending money, going after ads, it's not just a one-time thing. Like, to be very clear, and you'll hear me say this a lot because I'm very passionate about this idea, is that Facebook fundraising is not a flip on, flip off money switch, right? It's not a piggy bank I just go dip in wherever the heck I want, but rather it's a year-long commitment. And a lot of times the most successful nonprofits we see do it multi-year, right? Same thing with the marketing channel. I can't expect and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm passionate about this, right? I'll just say that if you're expecting 400 to 500% ROI every single time, yikes. We'll touch on that in a second. Now, specifically too, before I forget, I do have a couple screenshots that I took out of a specific HubSpot report. Y'all okay if I show that real quick? And by okay, I mean, I'm absolutely going to do that right now. So let me see if I can have the right screen I'm sharing. There we go. And so diving into that idea, again, going back to knowing your age group of supporters, both current and future, right? Let's take it from HubSpot. Thanks for doing all the data digging for us, but I'm not going to go through every bullet line. This hit different for me because it resonates with me, right? I think, the top reason millennials and Gen Z may not donate is due to poor social media presence. Like, yes, I am absolutely guilty, both supporting nonprofits, but then also brands. If I'm going to go buy something new, try something new, if I see that their Facebook or their social pages aren't up to snuff, yikes, I'm going to have to think twice, right? And it's just the way I'm triggered into think. Also, it's really interesting. Gen Z and millennials want to receive updates from nonprofits at least monthly, which is really interesting. We'll see the next slide, how it compares to, we'll say, different generations that are a little bit older in the age groups. Also, texting and app-based donations, as opposed to going to the website. I'm absolutely guilty of that. And I love it because similar to Facebook, why would I want to jump out of channel if I'm already in Facebook to go donate? It's like extra UI, UX steps that I don't care about because it's as weird and petty as it sounds, like it's definitely an inconvenience for me. Does anything jump out of this list for you when it comes to we'll group all three of us into this bucket here?
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And it's so interesting to just see the numbers reflect like the actual behavior that's actually taking place versus like, I don't do that, but that's what the stats say, which is really interesting. And I mean, knowing this, I think from a nonprofit perspective is really interesting because it gives you the ammunition to be able to figure out what your next steps are. And, I see somebody on the Q&A saying that it's hard to develop a proactive versus a passive approach to seeing success on social media. But again, I think there's opportunity if you start pushing and creating those actual interactions on that space. They're already there. Creating them will actually bring them more. And Meredith and I worked together at Cystic Fibrosis Canada a couple of years ago and created an event that was for people who looking to climb Machu Picchu and raise funds for Machu Picchu. And we created a Facebook group where we were able to engage these individuals and really communicate to them things that were important for the trip, but also gave them the opportunity to network with one another where we could oversee it. We could share those resources with other groups, with other people, even outside of Facebook, but that generates such organic conversations and interesting data that I think will help your organization figure out what could a more structured, proactive strategy be versus the, just kind of doing it on the fly. And I think the more you do it and the more you're in there, I think the more you're going to learn about how and what capacity is available on those sites.
No, that's great. I'm looking at also someone just chatted anonymously, but still a great piece. And this person said, developing a more proactive versus passive approach has been the biggest challenge in seeing success on social media. For example, challenges on Facebook versus birthday fundraisers. It's hard to predict success and use it as an ongoing piece of your strategy if you're just waiting for users to start fundraising on their own. I think that's such great advice. And like you hear that out loud to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like there's nothing that I can do to go for my team and stand up and just let it run and expect great results, right? It takes strategy, it takes proactiveness, it takes right tool tech stack too, in some cases. And we'll cover some of that. And thank you for contributing that, whoever that was. Maybe that was Jeff Delizio. I see out there. If that was you, thank you. The other thing too here, as we scroll over, this is kind of that juxtaposition. And as I was prepping for this with y'all earlier this week, the one things that stuck out is the majority of, or how frequent people want communications and how that differs. We are obviously needy in the millennial bucket. Like I want it at least once a month. Whereas as you go a little bit older with the Gen X or the boomers, right, you start to see a little bit more less frequent, a little bit more probably, I would say, likelihood to be very specific on where they give. And I would argue that you're not going to find probably boomers or a lot of them on, say, a TikTok. My guess, assuming, right? But, you know, if I think about my parents, who my dad just turned 60 today, he's in Facebook, my mom's on Facebook, and that's where they vibe, right? That's where they get their information. I always get to hear how my mom's friends are doing and how my family's doing from across the US, right? It's just really interesting. And Meredith, like for you, did anything on this slide, or as you kind of go through the different bullet points, catch you off guard, or even with the millennials and below? It's just really interesting. And again, thanks to HubSpot for doing all the work for us.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, fundraising, like anything, is going to have trends, right? It's going to have things that are popular that's going to change over time. And where, I mean, it says it right here on the boomers that they prefer to donate by mail. To millennials and Gen Z, like, I don't think I get any mail other than junk. So, like, it's gonna have trends and things like that, you know, where we went from direct mail, then we went to online. Now we're making a push towards social media because that's where people are. Like, I think we've talked about a couple of times, that's where people are living. That's where people are doing all of their daily business. They're not as even much in their email anymore. So it's going to have these trends and flows, and social media is really where we're headed right now.
That's such a great point. Like, and Maria from our team here, Maria Clark, who I think is on the call, she does such a fantastic job painting that picture of, she came from 25 years of executive experience with nonprofits. And she gave me a crash course in like what we call the third shift of giving. And that giving acts as, hey, it started out with the physical peer-to-peers, right? And it moved into email and started that evolving digital fundraising, and that look at where we're at now with social. So we're having that swing and that massive shift in where and how people are giving. Again, it's similar to how I've looked at marketing as well, and where a lot of marketers on this call is, why in the world would I take someone out of a channel that I attracted them through, right? I don't want to provide friction or unneeded roadblocks to getting to the end result. And for nonprofits, it's gaining first-time supporters and then keeping them around, engaging them throughout the year, and growing them into repeat supporters and donors throughout the course of their lifetime, right? I'm going to stop sharing here. A lot of great questions coming through. And I haven't seen anything else. I did have one more that we'll cover real quick. This one's from Megan. And so let's see what Megan has to say. Personally surprised to hear that the youngins are monthly donors because they also tend to be broke, especially this year. Any tips for crafting the social message to this audience in this economy? That's a loaded question. And Megan, thank you so much for dropping that, because I think it is incredibly important to know. And I found it to struggle in my 20s. Like, I could barely afford top ramen sometimes, let alone you think about helping support a charitable cause. For y'all, like, what is your experience with that? And I know I have personal experiences, and as I've grown older, it's become a little bit easier. Also, the auto subscribe type of deal, my wife and I do for a few in smaller chunks. makes sense for us. It helps us to make sure we're doing it and we're being intentional, and technology takes care of the rest. But that's recurring donorship. Like for y'all, what's your point of view on that? And Megan, thank you for dropping that in.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I think it's such an interesting point because, these youngins are actually what I see are a super engaged group of individuals who are starting movements, all across, the country, the globe, who are like taking causes to the next level and care about them. And maybe today they don't necessarily have that big bank account or cash flow to be able to support your organization, but you want them now. You want these people investing, even if it's $5 a month, to be able to contribute to your cause, because these individuals will start to grow in their own professional career. They're going to start to gain that wealth. They're going to start to gain influence in their own network. And you want them engaged and active in your cause as early and as quickly as possible. In order to do that, it's meet them where they're at in creating those experiences and interactions so that they feel that you know them, you understand them, and that will create that bond and really, really strengthen that relationship. That will then, of course, as they grow and they learn and they interact and meet new people, they'll gain new causes. But if you have that relationship with them from the beginning and have been able to solidify it through, again, understanding where they're at, they're able to grow with you and will continue to do so as their wealth grows. So even if it's $5 a month, take it, engage with them, and treat them as the future for your company. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would also even add to that, like Brenna said, it's a very attainable way to fundraise. I might not be able to give $120 right now, but I could give $10 a month for the year. Also, millennials, think about the amount of things that millennials pay for monthly. They pay for their streaming services. They pay for their phone bills. They pay for their cars. They pay for all these things monthly. They understand monthly, right? And sometimes that is just money coming out of their bank account. I'm not saying that that is always the way to do it, but it's automated. They know what to expect. They understand paying small amounts towards big things. So I also, when I founded that monthly, millennials are going to be the next generation monthly donors, I was also surprised. I'm a millennial. We are all moving up in our careers, whether we're in different phases of earning money. But I think it's that attainable way to donate that they already understand.
It's so true. And that might explain why some of my teammates are trying to get my Netflix login still. So hopefully they're rerouting funds. The Q&A has some fantastic stuff. If y'all are okay with it, I'm going to earmark a lot of these. Jeff, I saw you jump in about a nonprofit voice. We'll touch on that probably in the Q&A section because that's very important. Also, there's a comment about Web 3.0. So crypto, NFT specifically, I was waiting for that. I love that side of the world, and I don't see a lot of people practically going there, probably because it's not proved out. Let's set that aside for the Q&A. Keep an eye on things. We got about 15 to 20 minutes before Hawk joins us to go through his breakdown of his drinks that we have in our hand. If there's any left, I somehow paced myself, so I'm doing good. I do want to talk about, and you call them KPIs, I call them OKRs, but in the end run of things, like measurement. And let's switch points. So assuming we've decided on, hey, let's go test the waters in this social media channel. What in the world do I do to make sure I'm measuring to ensure success? Because if I'm not measuring, there's no way to tell if something is successful. We have no way to go tell my boss or your boss if, hey, this is what we expected. This is what we got. We should be promoted to CMO. Or CEO, or I should be fired, right? There's a thin line to walk between that sometimes. And it's one of the things that it's been ingrained in me over the years, right? I know y'all have your perspectives. I'll talk to them as OKRs or objectives and key results, right? And KPIs roll into those, right? And my team knows all these well because I harp on them all day long and love them. But as a nonprofit, how often, and y'all could probably answer this with your experience, right? How often is there a stakeholder conversation about when you're adding new programs, new options for fundraising, new channels? Is there a unified conversation around what are our key results? What are our KPIs to track success? Or is that something that is hey, if it makes money, let's go for it? What does that look like?
Great question. And I would love people on this call to chime in and let us know what your experience is. A lot of the times, especially for new and fun upcoming ways that organizations can raise money, and I see Jeff wrote that your gaming platform is doing incredibly well. sometimes nonprofits are really nervous to put in their time and energy to like do KPIs. So it's almost like, let's stick to what we know works and let's kind of go with that. And I think that goes back to what that anonymous individual wrote with proactive versus being passive, because they're nervous. And if you put a KPI or an OKR against it, you need to make sure you have the resources and staff to support it. And again, I see a lot of comments with an average gift of $9 or small gifts sometimes, or even the youngins who they believe don't necessarily have the wealth today. Nonprofits are sometimes nervous to take that risk of, we don't know, so how do we associate a KPI and OKR against it versus what we do know? And all we do know is we need to measure that, which I think definitely create a little bit of frustration in the organization between how do we create new programs and projects that we can create those OKRs for and ensure that they're successful if we don't have those resources. So again, Meredith, I'd love your experience too, but I'd love people in the chat to chime in and let us know what your experience is.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to set, if it's the first time you're doing it, it's tough to set KPIs for something you've never done before. I would say if you're dabbling in it for the first time, you could take a look at your existing fundraising initiatives, whether it be an event, a campaign, or whatever it might be, and look at how social media fundraising can actually complement that. Chances are you probably have KPIs set for those initiatives. You have a general idea of how much you're going to raise based on, the historical information that you have available to you, and adding in social media fundraising option can boost those, and also helps you kind of make a case internally to get it started, right? If it's complementing something that you're already doing, it's a little less scary, it's a little bit less new, and it's a good jumping off point to then make a further case that social media fundraising should be something that you're investing in.
And Darlene, boss, I see, I wish we had the bandwidth to do KPIs, but we're usually just biting our nails and counting the money. It's a very common theme, right? And I think, Adam, to your point, it's essential. And it's essential because that's where where the gaps are, the challenges are, the opportunities are, and you can actually utilize your resources for the best opportunities that you see versus just sitting there and counting the money. But I absolutely agree with that. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's just sometimes the way in which those organizations tend to go, especially if they don't, again, have those resources.
It's so true. And I've lived this pain being a volunteer for a very small nonprofit too. So I get that. And not to get too crazy into stats. And I'm going to share my screen because what do you know? I have another poll for us. So as we go through, I'm going to open this up and start my countdown timer. So as I go on, I'm curious to see who's tracking what. In terms of what fundraising metric is most important to your nonprofit. And this could be, I don't know, this could be a donor retention, year-over-year growth, think ROAS, or return on ad spend, or ROI. As we're talking about this, to give a delineation and understanding from this, and I got a schooling this morning from one of our teammates, Matt, and I call him Stat Matt, and he helped to break down the difference in strategic value of return on ad spend versus ROI. They are not the end all. They should never really honestly be managed one way or another as the primary, number one period driver. But rather, you got return on investment is for the scalability for those larger nonprofits that can throw a dollar at, we'll say $1 spend. As long as they're getting $1.01 back, they're making money, and they could do it at scale, and that works. For a lot of smaller nonprofits, think about return on ad spend, which is about optimizing what dollars you have to get the most amount out of that. And there's a point where, you have your return kind of hit this influx of spend versus revenue created, right? But the one thing that we always run into from Good United side, and we try our best to kind of give kind of advice and guidelines, is that, you can't expect a 300 or 400% ROAS every single time, right? It's not going to happen. You may have one or two that pops off, and all of a sudden you're looking like superstars to everyone in your organization. It's just not going to happen every time. So for me, and what I've done in my past and what we recommend is taking a look at any social channel that you want to invest money in. Don't look at it as a one-time piggy bank. You heard this already from me. I told you I'm going to harp on it. Look at it as an investment in the first 3 to 6 months is really crucial if you're thinking about testing the waters, getting a baseline of data to understand where efficiencies can be brought in, where you can tweak, where you can make things better, and what you can expect out of that channel. Like if you think that social is going to save your lives, like honestly, it probably isn't. It's a great channel. It has the ability, as my buddy Jeff will tell you, to amplify your message and your brand. And also think about things like you see here. Donor retention is huge. Return on investment, year-over-year growth is another big one here. All those things can be added through social channel fundraising, right? I'm looking at my notes here to, if from my previous life, before I started supporting nonprofits, like if I were to walk in and say, I have a channel that's going to drop in 200 to 300% ROAS and give you that return in an enterprise environment, I'd be promoted to CMO. Like, so I'm like, this is unfair. This is a cheat code. But like, if you think about where you're hovering, just set realistic expectations is my recommendation here. If you don't have KPIs, you can. My team's happy to chime in and help with that. I'm sure y'all lovely ladies would be able to do the same, and really help that we have people that, like Jeff DeLizio, I keep picking on him because he's my absolute favorite so far, who gets this. And we'll touch on data and the importance of data as we continue on here. I'm going to stop sharing because that was some good information. So I'm looking at my notes. Was there anything final? I'm keeping an eye on time. We're just blowing through here the best way. I want another 3 hours with y'all. Before we close out the setting proper expectations with how you measure success, before we jump into the data piece.
I just think it's really interesting to see your stat that was just up there that, majority of people is measured by year-over-year growth. And again, everybody on this call, I find that that's sometimes a limitation because you're consistently going, and Maria mentioned this on the chat, is you're not always comparing apples to apples, but yet year-over-year growth is what you're constantly being marked on in terms of your success. And if year-over-year growth is what you're constantly looking and measuring, it's sometimes difficult for those fundraisers to then say, well, if I do this or I do that, will it take resources away from what I'm supposed to be measuring year-over-year, which may change that. And I feel like that's sometimes the fear that space has in trying and doing new things. But I think what we've learned, and again, let me know what you think, is from the last, 2.5 years, is that we can't always rely on what we've always done, and that we have to kind of take the opportunities in front of us and say, well, what can we do? Can we try? Can we pivot? Can we introduce something new? Can we take that risk? Can we take that chance? And how do we then do that? And it's just a conversation led by, leaders like all of you on this call who are looking at joining conversations that will help you have better conversations internally at your organization on what can we do to change what we've always done, and how do we add in new things that can give us those KPIs and OKRs that are really going to help us raise more revenue for our cause, but in a potentially different new way, but yet having the opportunity to actually invest in it.
That's a great call. And I'm keeping an eyeball on time. We've got probably just enough to get through the data section. And if you two ladies are okay, we'll scoot the next steps and like the wrapping it up till after the drinks. Hopefully we don't consume ours too quick here. And then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A, which I'm excited about based on what the questions we have going on so far, right? So moving into data, I'm going to go ahead and say it's not just about email addresses now. And for some of those on here that may be like interesting to hear, but you think about this, and you've heard me mention about staying in channel. I've seen a lot of comments about the value of keeping people where they're at and conversing with them there, right? Why would I send someone 5 different steps outside of where they're already at if they contact me there? But that also comes with some challenges. Emails are great because I can contact and send out, but I still need demographic information. I still want to get an understanding of, like, if we're talking about Facebook giving tools, I want to know when their birthdays are. I want to be able to proactively reach out and say, hey, we really appreciate that you support our mission. Have you thought about doing a birthday fund challenge or a fundraiser on our behalf? a month ahead of time, right? And we like to loop those Facebook birthdays into what we call organic fundraisers, because you can't really control them. You can't really force them to happen. Like, you're not going to tell me to go do a birthday challenge and make me do it. It's on my own will. But it's that organic aspect that, as long as you can get a trend line and understand year over year, this is a great example of what you can expect generally. You get 2 or 3 years down the road, you're starting to get a trend line, right? And you start to understand, hey, I can account to this to my business. I know what I can get out of this. And there's some variance, plus or minus, but this is consistent, right? You have your growth aspect or growth, really fundraising efforts, such as the challenges on Facebook. Those are a little bit more opportunistic in terms of new leads, new revenue, and then getting people into that recurring cycle of donorship, right? And repeat revenue. From your all's point of view, because you deal heavily with data, right? Getting data from one place to another. It's what you all do great. What is the importance? How incredibly important is this to the, not only capture revenue today, but then ensure that you're compounding your revenue for tomorrow and on?
I mean, it's the most important, I would argue. Like, data is going to tell you everything you need to know about where to invest your energy, what you should be trying. Data is storytelling, and telling stories should be part of all fundraising initiatives. Adam, you mentioned some of the data that you can gather through Facebook, and it actually provides a lot of key metrics that help you understand who is following your page, how they're engaging with your content, that if you weren't doing it on Facebook, you would actually have to survey people. So it's a really great way to get information on your audience without having to ask them to do something. Like things like age, gender, location, the time of day that you're getting the most traction on your posts, like that is all information that is so key to optimizing your pages and should guide how you build out smart social media fundraising campaigns. And by understanding that information, it allows you to really create that content and those stories that is resonating with the audiences on your channels. You can build more content around what's working, write more stories, and use that really as like your main fundraising tool. Oh, you're on mute, Adam. We got so far.
There we go. I got so excited. I'm starting my countdown on this again for a minute. And I do love my data. And I'm really curious because this is a super interactive group we've got here, which thank you to everyone. I don't always get this in webinars as I know this group knows. But from the data perspective, also you think about the KPIs and you think about driving and understanding what you're driving towards and how you're tracking, even down to, again, calling out, like understanding the stories. Like Facebook giving tools are great. And what Good United, I know we focus on a lot of, is helping nonprofits to not only get the data points, but then humanize those data points with the stories that we pull from. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it. And one of the coworkers here at Good United has done some amazing stuff on Facebook where she shares some incredibly personal stories. And that is super important for a handful of reasons outside of her relation and her tie to the mission of this nonprofit. But then also as a nonprofit on the other end, I want to know and understand, like, how do I help support that individual? And how do I do that at scale where one person is fine, but you think about, I mean, is there 20 of me that will go through every day and do that on Facebook? Like, I highly doubt any of us. I don't have that team to do that. And I can imagine most nonprofits don't, if any at all, right? But the data and being able to understand, process, and then take action on that action piece is so critical. It's probably the most part. Like, that is no good unless you know how to take action. So there's a lot of ways to do that. I don't know if we have the time to bake that here. And we had a handful of people say, yes, obviously data is important, donor data. And there's 3 that said, I don't even know where to start. That's understandable.
Message us, post webinar, let us help you, all of us on this panel.
And I think with that, it's not always an easy fix, as in we'll snap our fingers, but we've got enough expertise between the groups here to know how to help you get started on that path. So feel free to contact myself, any of the team here after this, and we'll be happy to help too. Okay. Was there any thoughts or final things we want to add on data before we hand it over to Hawk? Otherwise, I'm going to keep going for like 3 hours, and no one wants that here. Trust me.
I think you and Meredith have said so many incredible things about data. And, I used to always say like data is is a story. Even one piece of information is a story and allows you to use that piece of information to build on that conversation. And as long as you have the opportunity to get someone to tell you something, you're allowed to use that in that conversation. A lot of times we ask people, like to what Meredith said, we survey them and we're trying to pull out all this information. These individuals are giving it to you, stories, personal stories that they are sharing with you and on a public space. This is the opportunity to then connect with that and utilize that in your conversations. Again, data is not intimidating. It's an opportunity to engage and create deeper relationships with those individuals.
That's a great call. And I'll do one last because Megan dropped some good stuff here. So Megan, again, donor data is definitely important, but it's also very and arguably more important for us to get the data of the actual fundraiser who maybe they didn't donate directly, but they brought 10 plus donors through the door in the first place. Which is great. Like you think about, like I always like roll my eyeballs about the word virality because it's often misused and misplaced. But there is a certain component of this viral aspect where I'm bringing my squad along with me to go do some great stuff and support. And that's a lot of times not quantifiable. Does it show up on a spreadsheet if you're not paying attention or have the right tools in place, right? And Megan, and if you could, y'all drop this in the Q&A in response. She's curious, what data or KPIs are folks collecting on fundraisers through social? We have a handful of stuff that, again, I got to give the floor over to Hawk here. But use the Q&A, both my GU team, as well as anyone else attending. Let me know what this looks like in terms of some recommendations from that aspect. I'm going to pause here. There's a lot of things going on. Lindsay, I believe we should be ready at this point for Hawk, if I'm not mistaken. And Lindsay is my producer behind the scenes. She's in the office in Charleston who put all this together. She did a fantastic job with the rest of our marketing team. So I'm going to pause here and see what we got going on. In the meantime, anything that we want to wrap up in this session? I know after the drinks with Hawk, we'll come back around and wrap this all up. We'll give you a high bullet point kind of equation, because that's what this whole thing is, right? Equations. And then we'll do an open form Q&A, which will be really fun to see how we'd use that. So
yeah. And just while we're waiting for Hawk, just even one, message for Danielle and for Megan, just social, these individuals are leaders, team leaders, organizational leaders, volunteers, ambassadors. So I would say start that as your starting point, or use that as your starting point, at least anyways, for tracking.
Oh,
sweet. And we got Hawk.
Hey, there's a bar behind me.
We're all here. Can you see us?
It's amazing. Yeah. How are you guys doing? My name is Hawk. My hair is not up today, but it's because it's kind of rainy over here. But yeah, my name is Syed House. I go by Hawk. One of the first five bartenders to help launch Drinksmith. Any chance that I could not have a green screen on my bar just so I can show you guys something? That would be dope. I don't know if that's possible. If it's not, no worries, I'll roll with it. But yeah, being with Drinksmith is dope because I've been with them, ever since they started. And as a bartender, I've always wanted to have somebody be able to buy my drinks at home. It's like you come see me at the bar, I make you a dope cocktail, you enjoy it. But now with Drinksmith, you can have that experience at home and be a little bit of the bartender yourself. What makes us different compared to everyone else out there in the RTD space is that we actually cold pressurized juice our fresh ingredients and we keep it separate from the liquor. So when you're ready to drink, all you gotta do is twist it, shake it, and pour it over ice. And by keeping the fresh ingredients separate, it keeps from the liquor, that is, it keeps it in like a way more fresher state. And there will be times where you've had like a canned cocktail and the liquor has been sitting in with the lime juice, sitting on a warm shelf, and it's just like you go to open it, it's like not as fresh. Well, with us, We cold pressurized juice, we cold store, we cold transport, we do everything cold because it is fresh. We want you to enjoy a fresh cocktail. So with some of the drinks that I've made the East Side. I created the East Side. I created a bourbon berry smash, a what is it? Blackberry bramble. Yes, a blackberry bramble. And just recently, I'm about to launch the mezcal margarita. I think it's supposed to launch on Friday. So this is my new cocktail that just came out. Really excited to get a sneak peek of it right now. So, but yeah, if you guys have your cocktails right now, let's go ahead and crack those open. And then I'm going to show you how you make some of these cocktails from scratch. So go ahead. And a tip and recommendation for opening these guys: always either dry the bottom of the bottle, or and have a dry hand, because if you don't, sometimes it would just your hand will just slip and it just won't twist. But you're going to twist it literally a quarter, and then you should feel it like kind of move, and then obviously you can't twist anymore. You can throw it back and forth between both chambers and get it mixed up, or you can give it a good shake. Do you. I like to pour these over ice, but you can drink this over straight out of the bottle. I like a little extra dilution. I mean, keep in mind, there are 2 cocktails in here. So these are 16% alcohol. So if you're having a couple of these, you should be feeling good. And don't make the mistake. I know there's always, a person or two who don't really twist the bottom and just get straight booze. Don't make that mistake, please. So, all right. So we got it cracked open. Boom, boom, boom. Pour it over. I raise a glass to you guys. Cheers, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thirsty Thursday. Cheers, cheers, cheers. Yeah, that mezcal margarita is delicious. I'm going to show you how to make it from scratch, too. All right. With the East Side. The East Side is a classic cocktail that you can order at the bar. If the bar has mint and the bar has cucumber, they can make you an East Side. And it's really easy to make at home as well. We're going to start out by grabbing a mixing tin to start, to shake our cocktail. But if you don't have a mixing tin, a mason jar, or even a protein shaker bottle can suffice as a shaking utensil, So we're going to grab our mixing tin, and we're going to add 3/4 ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice. Now, it is crucial that you always use fresh squeezed citrus, because if you're thinking about getting that bright green bottle that's sitting on a warm shelf in the aisle of the grocery store, that juice is made from concentrate and it's not good. You're going to taste it in the cocktail and it's not going to be good. So just try to avoid that. And anytime you're making cocktails, always go for the fresh citrus. So 3/4 ounce lime juice right in. All right. And then we're going to add 3/4 ounce of simple syrup. This is another ingredient that you can make at home if you have sugar and water. Save yourself the money of buying some already made simple syrup. All you need to do is take a cup of sugar, cup of water, mix it together, and you have simple syrup that you can use for cocktails, for tea, coffee, whatever, you name it, it's there, and it'll last for about 3 weeks in your refrigerator too. So we got our lime, we got our citrus, our simple syrup. I'm gonna throw 3 cucumber slices into my mixing tin here and give it a muddle just to break it up and really get those cucumber, flavors and juices flowing. All righty. And then we're gonna add some mint leaves. I'm gonna add 8 mint leaves to my mixing tin. I don't need to muddle this because mint is already a delicate leaf. And once we shake it with ice and give it the agitation, that should be enough to release those mint oils into our cocktail. And the last ingredient, we need our gin. All right, no gin. There is no specific gin for this cocktail. Whatever gin that you prefer, by all means, use that. And if you don't like gin, go ahead and use vodka. And hell, if you like tequila, use tequila, But the East Side recipe calls for gin. So we're going to go ahead and add some gin. All right, let's add some ice, give it a good shake. And one more cube. Perfect. All right. Okay. All right. And if you do have a mixing tin, a good measure to know that your cocktail is properly shaken is if the tin is cold to touch, right? If it starts to build some frost and condensation on the outside of the tin, it's a good sign to know that your cocktail has been properly shaken. So for this, I'm gonna grab a coupe here, and I'm going to double strain this with the fine strainer because, since we have muddled ingredients in our cocktail, we don't want green stuff in our teeth when we're talking to people. So we're gonna catch the pulp by using a fine strainer like so. And nice. Okay, and then for garnish, I'm gonna take a mint sprig right here and kind of poke a hole through this cucumber and make it like a little mint flag, something small like that. And it's kind of hard to see there. There you go. And just kind of just throw it off to the side and throw it in. It'll float. It floats. All right, it floats. Amazing. And that is how you make the east side. Cheers, guys. I forgot to say, the best description for an east side is an alcoholic spa water. It's like, you get that mint, that cucumber, that gin. It's like, you go to like a masseuse or get a massage and like you need to hydrate and they have that giant tank of mint and cucumber water floating, that's exactly what this tastes like, but with booze. It's amazing. All right. That one was quick. All right, let's move on to the mezcal margarita. Mezcal is really popular nowadays. It's actually tequila and agave spirits. Fun fact: this is the first year Americans have bought agave spirits over bourbon or whiskeys, which is wild. So let's go to show you that tequila and mezcal are kind of having a moment right now, which is pretty dope. So I'm gonna make a mezcal margarita. Nice little something smoky, a little sweet, a little citrusy. Yeah. Again, and grab our mixing tin here. And the thing about mezcal too, I know there's a lot of people that just say it's too smoky and you can't tolerate it. There are mezcals out there that are so good and you just have to find the right one. Don't cheap out on mezcal, because if you cheap out on mezcal, you'll find something that's not pleasant and it's going to taste like a rubber band or like a Band-Aid of some sort. And we don't want that, right? There are good mezcals out here. Verde is a really good one. It's actually the mezcal that's used in the Drinksmith cocktail. So we're going to use that today. But before we do that, let's add our citrus again. 3/4 ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice again. Now, good measure, a rule of thumb, when you're making cocktails at home and you're trying to figure out how many lemons or limes you need to buy for your party or how many cocktails you need to make. A good rule of thumb is that a lime is, on average, can make about an ounce of juice, and a lemon can make, on average, 1.5 ounces of juice. So that's a good way to kind of rule of thumb when you're making cocktails at home. You need to figure out how many lemons and limes you need. Also, if you don't have a jigger, a tablespoon is equivalent to 1/2 fluid ounce. So if you don't have a jigger like this, another fun fact that you can use a tablespoon and do some quick math to figure out how to measure out your cocktails properly. So again, I'm gonna add some, this time I do have agave. I actually don't have agave, so we're gonna use simple syrup. It's the same, almost the same thing. We're gonna do 3/4 ounce of our simple syrup. And then I'm gonna add about 1/4 ounce of our Cointreau here to get those orange notes in our margarita. Perfect. Not a little goes a long way. And if you didn't have Cointreau, an easy hack and also a less sweeter cocktail would be to add an orange peel into your mixing tin and shake it. You'll get all those orange notes, all those orange oils into your cocktail without having an extra liquor or extra sweetness. And lastly, we're gonna add our 2 ounces of our mezcal. There we go, our mezcal verde, perfect. And let's give it a quick shake. There we go, add some more ice. Okay. And last cube, perfect. And shake it up. I like to do a dirty dump, and a dirty dump means that instead of straining this right over fresh ice, we're just gonna go right on in. Oh, look at that! Looks so delicious. Can't wait. And for garnish, I'll throw a lime on it, but I don't have a lime. So there you go. That is how you make a mezcal margarita, a nice, tasty, slightly smoky beverage. Cheers, you guys. Oh yeah. That is amazing. That is amazing. Usually I would open up the floor to you guys to do a little, ask a bartender anything, but I'm not sure if I have the time to do that because I do want to be cautious about the time that you guys have for your Q&A. But yeah, that is how you make those cocktails. Let me know.
Cool. Somehow, thanks, Hawk. And somehow I ended up with the mezcal
Oh,
one off your.
Yes.
So it's I just went on your site. So apparently it's live. So soft launch.
There it is. I'm glad you got to try it.
Yeah, I could definitely attest that this is the go-to for me now. If I order anymore, I also had the pineapple jalapeno margarita. So
that's
I'm cruising towards the end of happy hour. Happy, needless to say.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I was looking at the Q&A. I think some of our team out in Charleston wants you to come out to Charleston for our Christmas party to do a live drop-in for us. My only recommendation, if we do that, bring lots of alcohol. We like to drink. Right. So
right. Actually, I have a good friend out there, Miguel, who runs the Instagram account Holy City Handcraft. Yeah. He's also a really dope, a good friend of mine. So he's out there in Charleston. Hell yeah.
Perfect. No, so many great comments about the alcoholic spa water was a hit too. So I appreciate it. If anyone has any more Q&A to drop in, I know we are about 25 minutes left in this session total. So say your pieces now for Hawk and well wishes before he hits the high road. Hawk, thank you so much for dropping in. High quality stuff. It's going to be a staple for my household from here on out, as well as the office probably.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. By all means, if you guys got questions, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram at Cocktails by Hawk, and I'll get to you as soon as possible. And I'm always posting, easy recipes and at-home recipes and stuff like that too. So thank you guys for having me, but enjoy the rest of your guys' week. Take care, y'all.
Thanks so much, Hawk. Have a good one.
Peace.
All right, I'm following him right now on Instagram. There he is, easy enough. And you get a full aspect of his mohawk there on Instagram if you follow him. I'm going to wait for my esteemed colleagues to come back on and turn on their cameras. We've got about 20 minutes left, give or take, between Q&A and wrapping this thing up. And we still got a good amount of people here. Bryna and Meredith, you wouldn't mind popping back in. We'll close this thing out. And we got some next steps.
We're in. I think we
can't turn on our video. This is the Adam show now. This is all along, wasn't it?
No one wants that. Let me see if I can ask y'all both to start your video because I technically removed your video last time. So now thinking that I'm 2 down. I'm sure everyone else is just like me.
Having a good time.
A good time. So let's see if we can keep this together. Because by now I think my MO is polls. Let's do another quick poll coming into this. Specifically, I'm curious about which of the 2 drinks that we shipped out to y'all was your favorite, and this may go into future give outs. Eastside, clear winner so far. My options were not there as I went on the website and went rogue a little bit. Tell you what, that new mezcal margarita is where it's at for me. So bourbon sours, not so much. A lot of East Side fans. I think that was the gin one, right? If I'm not mistaken. So that is interesting to note. Nice. And we'll keep going. Cool. And then as that's running down the last 20 seconds, that leaves us with, this is all great, what we've talked about today, but like, it doesn't really mean much if we don't have some actionable next steps, right? I'm looking at my notes. For me, the big landing point here, that if I could have everyone walk away with this one thing for me, besides that social media fundraising is not an instant piggy bank, is that you can't really expect, and we got close. So clear winners, East Side. We can't really expect at any point to have the maximum amount of revenue generated if we don't be proper stewards of our supporters, our donors. If you're thinking about social media, Facebook's basically the subscribers to your organization's mission. If you're just thinking that, oh, I could cruise till Giving Tuesday or the giving season and flip that switch on and we're good. Maybe maybe the brand is big enough to support that. But in all honesty, like for 95% of nonprofits, that just doesn't work that way. So for me, and very much passionate about, and this, as is my team at Good United, it's what we help nonprofits do more, is think about it from a year-long perspective. And I know the lifetime value of supporter is kind of like that magic, like mythical thing, right? But it really starts with, are you actually reaching out on a consistent basis to your supporters, your donors throughout the course of the year? Whether that be as simple as saying, hey, your birthday's coming around, you're going to hop in, you're going to do the thing again, right? Or checking in to say, hey, thank you again for supporting us last month in our challenge on Facebook. It meant a lot to us. Here's some additional resources. Here's some additional things that came out of that, that it may be important to you to check out and see what we're doing. Jeff DeLizzo. Okay, one more time. I promise, Jeff. He's doing some amazing things with how he's leading his organization, Epilepsy Foundation of America, behind this idea of mapping out a donor journey, right, from start to finish, and then using data, coming back to that piece, to understand how to serve content creatively to each and every individual to meet them where they're at throughout the course of their life journey, right? I think it's still in progress, but like they're making huge strides to that. I know Facebook fundraising, and we've thankfully been able to partner with him along that ride to try and figure out what's that next step. And it's been phenomenal. So year round is his playbook, right? It's in what we try and help nonprofits think about. Ladies, from your perspective, as we're wrapping things up, what's the one thing that you could give to everyone that hears on the call still? Take away, if there's a bullet point of what to do next, what is that?
I think from my perspective is just along with, look at where you're measuring year over year and year over year growth, or whether it is donor retention, and really try and have those leadership conversations about what you need to do by looking at your data and looking at where your supporters are, and taking that and trying it. A lot of the time it's just that first step of deciding that you're going to do it. And that's where you're really going to start to figure out how you're going to find new innovation, events, programs, whatever it may be. But just taking a look at what you've always done and just trying something new. And again, using the data to help you decide what that is, and then just doing it, I would say, is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, to kind of build on what Brian has said, I would say start doing research. If you're not sure where to start, there's a ton of information out there that's available to you about social media fundraising that can help you get started, help you make a case internally if you need, support from leadership teams. I saw a question in the Q&A about board members and how do you get them engaged? Ask them to start researching too. Chances are, if a board member spends 15 minutes on Facebook and sees all of the fundraisers that exist, how much money they can raise, they're going to get on board pretty quickly. The stats speak for themselves there. Like, this is where fundraising is going, these kinds of things, meeting people where they're at. And we gotta get on board. So there's no better time to start than now. And just researching is the first step.
That's so true. And I think there's a lot of good things I'm coming through here, but I think as I share my screen a couple last times here, just to outline kind of what your social media equation is to wrap things up, right? Is take a targeted approach to social media fundraising. That means know who your supporters are and your donors, go where they are, but then also be thinking down the road of who is the next wave of supporters for your mission, and where do you need to start thinking about strategically to go be there and be ready for when they're ready to step up, right? Measure KPIs realistically, whether you're just starting that path and don't have an idea of where to start, as some of the people here on this call expressed through some of those polls, to your pros at this, right? I think being understand how to realistically set expectations across the whole stakeholder team in terms of a channel, whether it be Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, so on and so forth, is a good start, right? And make sure that you don't get fired. At the very most, maybe you're promoted to the next level because you're looking brilliant, right? But either way, having everyone's buy-in ensures your programs at least mutual success and mutual failure at the best, right? At worst. So also knowing the importance of data. We had a lot of incredible stories and output about the importance of data, how to use that. I think the key for me and for y'all to take home is data is cool, but it's what are you going to do with it that really matters, that actionable piece that you go and take home, whether it be tomorrow, next week, or next month. How are you using that information to help power your nonprofit forward? And finally, encourage year-round stewardship. No brainer for me and my team at Good United. It's what we do. It's what we help nonprofits do. But there's no way you can come to me as a millennial, drop in December and ask me to donate without talking to me all year. Clearly, as a millennial, I want to know every month. I want to be touched through email or through correspondence and channel every month. So be thinking about that and how you really take that relationship to a year-round basis instead of just a one and done type of deal. Ladies, was there anything else that I missed in this kind of very summarization equation here?
No, I think you summed it up wonderfully, but have conversations with the people who care about your cause and ask them what are they looking for. And technology is your friend. Social platforms and all the Good Uniteds and Fundraising KIT. We are your friends. We're here to help, support you, guide you, connect with us. We are more than willing to have conversations to talk about what does this look like and how you're going to actually execute this with the support from the people who have done this before, who are talking to industry experts and who are constantly looking to help support this nonprofit space.
That's perfect. Meredith, anything from your point of view before we open up the Q&A here?
I mean, I think you both said it perfectly. Like it's where we're going. It's time to get on board. And I'm hoping, what we've shared today can at least help you get started.
That's a great point. Maria just chimed in. You just got to start somewhere. Your mission is too important to be left behind, and which is so accurate on that one, right? Okay, we're going to try something new. We have not done this at Good United yet, but we're going to use this tool to open up Q&A. And what you can do is you can use, and I'll show the vote code. If you go to menti.com, again, in the top of the screen, 29240395, or if you already have that open, you can scroll over. This should pop up now for you and submit your questions. And there's a lot of great ones. And while people are jumping into that, let's go ahead, and I have a couple that were submitted through people who signed up. Specifically, I've got a great one. What's the next evolution in social? AI-driven fundraising. What's the next innovation in this space? And that was from Jeff with Epilepsy Foundation, who that may be the last time today. Hopefully I bring him up. But I think that's a really interesting question. Ladies, do you have any insight into what that could be? I know for us, as a team, we always look at how we bridge that gap between technology to help fuel efficiency, but then also not making sure not to lose the human touch, right? The B word, or bots, is a dirty word for a lot of people. It has its right place. It's not the sole thing that you should hinge your communication efforts on, but similar things like that make sense when they're deployed right and with the right strategy in the right context, right? From y'all's point of view, is there anything that Jeff should be looking out for? Everyone else on this call in that terms.
Yeah, I mean, Fundraising KIT specifically has created the machine learning and AI for the nonprofit space. So you want to look at what does that look like? How is it created? Who is it created by, and for what purpose? But I think, we look at the industry right now. There's been so many people who have joined online. There's a huge great resignation. There's a gap. And the only really thing that fills that gap is technology. People are working from home remotely. They're in different countries. They're in different spaces. How do you connect one another? And so I think that there's so much opportunity to look to technology to help lead and support your organization. There absolutely is the human touch and the balance. You don't want to rely all on it, but you want to invest in the future. And investing in the future is looking at organizations and spaces that are doing it correctly and are supporting the industry in the right way. So I think it's important to do your due diligence. but I think it's a huge opportunity for your organization. I mean, look at, 15, 20 years ago when people were talking about like online fundraising versus, in cash, in person, and checks and all that kind of stuff, you would never assume that that's where it's going. People who are paying money for platforms to get people to do it online, which is scary. But today, those individuals and those organizations that are pivoting and are able to understand where the forward thinking movements are going are seeing the return in investment and are increasing their revenue based on that opportunity and that ability to do so. So I would say, take it, grab it, do your research and homework, contact us at Fundraising KIT. I'd be happy to chat about the AI space in any sense, in any way, in any shape, in any form. But yeah, like, I'd say that's an opportunity for your nonprofit.
Agreed. I think for me, I would love to see AI help. And I saw a question earlier about voice and tone of voice, right? In a dream world, I would love to see AI be able to look at either a branding guide or a voice guide or even social media pages for nonprofits, be able to pull the tone of voice into an algorithm and help to reciprocate that in through either chat, like a Facebook Messenger, or any other output of content tools, right? That would be phenomenal. Probably reduce a lot of lag time in terms of resources spent trying to mimic that or replicate that. And similar to that technology aspect, coming back to that Web 3.0 or the NFT aspect, I'm starting to see more and more people, nonprofits specifically, dabble in crypto, NFTs. I haven't seen anyone own any NFTs yet. Ladies, is that something that we think is going to be on the kind of the razor's edge in the next two years, 1 year, 5 years? Like, where are we at in terms of adoption from that? Or are we lagging pretty far behind the nonprofit sector?
It's such a good question. And, you would hope that after these last 2 years of really understanding that technology and platforms need to move faster, it's important, but I think it's also important for the nonprofit industry to drive that change, right? And a lot of nonprofit organizations are really starting to look into it. I know there's someone on the call today, Regine, who's very outspoken and supportive of NFTs and all of these crypto opportunities for the nonprofit space. And if there's enough conversation out in the space, if there's enough leaders who are willing to take it on and talk about it, I definitely think now that these platforms are going to adopt it. Again, our organization is that's part of our roadmap. It's important because we know that it's an essential part of the future.
That's so true. I think about NFTs in general, and I dabble. Like, I'm not all in quite yet because I still have bills to pay on a day-to-day basis, right? But some of the really unique things that people are doing with NFTs for brand activation is really incredible. Like, I follow Dapper Labs very closely and what they do to bridge the gaps of big, like, sports entertainment specifically, and bridge the gap between sports and then the fans, and think that there's a lot of parallels in how to activate followers and really, in this case, donors potentially in the next 5 years. If you think through it and not be cheesy about it, right? You don't want to be cringe with it, right? I'm really excited to see how the evolution goes. We just had this really interesting question. And I've got a lot of my team that's on brand here with me today, so I'm sure they're chomping at the bit. How casual should nonprofits get on social media? It's hard not to be nonprofit boring, which that's so great. When you're trying to walk that line of professionalism, we once posted someone in a crop top and got flack. For me, I drive my team crazy because I'm always pushing limits of like, oh no, let's go step and try something new outside of our brand guidelines. But the brand guidelines are there. So my recommendation, and coming from a decade of trying to do this efficiently and always trying to break rules, if you don't have a brand guidelines or any sort of documentation when it comes to your brand voice, what the vibe is, and the vibe being images, the types of images, the diversity you're portraying, how you talk on social media, how you post and content, then I would recommend going there, or at least starting that conversation with, typically your marketing team will own that. Or if you're working with an outside agency, that should be something that you're having a conversation about. So that way, at least you have some guidelines. Now, interesting, when you get flack for a crop top, that could be, I'm not sure if that's external or internal flack that came about that. Ladies, from your perspective, outside of a brand guidelines to follow, what are some of the things that you can do to spice up the activity when it comes to posting content on social media channels?
I absolutely love this question. And I think it is so important to find a balance, but I also believe we are now in a world where we want to be inclusive, and there is, absolutely nothing wrong with someone feeling comfortable posing in whatever is comfortable for their own bodies. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with an organization if the content is right, if the message is right, if the interaction is right, if there's a supportive communication to be able to communicate what the message is. Because you don't want to always have to be worried about how and what you're posting, as long as, again, the message, the conversation is right and fits in exactly, Adam, to what you said about what that branding guideline is. But sometimes nonprofits feel very nervous, and I can hear it in this question, about getting outside of the norm. And sometimes for nonprofits, that is unfortunately the case, but you have to take baby steps, or you're going to end up looking 2 seconds later and you're going to be so far behind. And as long as you as an organization are comfortable with why this posting and this picture and this individual was a representation, I think that communicating that to the Slack or to the individuals who may have had a challenge, as long as you're united in the organization of how and why that was the image you chose, I'd say continue to do it. We want to support everyone and anyone, and how they feel comfortable as well, supporting and communicating and representing themselves.
Yeah, this resonated with a lot of people because the Q&A is going off. Oliver said, we used to have a fundraising director that told us to avoid anything fun or silly. He left. We began posting memes and our supporters love them. It ties back to that persona work, right? Knowing who your supporters are, both now and in the future, and then writing to that. Casey's on the call here from my team, and she does such a phenomenal job with the content of Good United, the voice, the brand, and keeps us so consistent. I think that I would probably be a very bad place without her, and so would our team, right? Another point here, I think also it's worth calling out media, like social media guidelines or brand guidelines. They're good for internal employees, right? There's no way we can expect anyone else other than our immediate team to follow those guidelines, as Megan calls out here. I think it's unrealistic to expect participants on your fundraisers to abide by brand guidelines, which is so correct, right? Absolutely. You also want to make sure that your guidelines are updated and aligned with the audience you're speaking to. Lots of people love crop tops, right? And we got, what else we got here? We got Megan chiming in the world of social media, especially, we're all our own brands. And good Lord, isn't that not true? We all have very Black Mirror to some extent, but then it's just the world we live in. Like, I am an extension of my digital self on LinkedIn, on any social posts. It's also why I was hesitant to get back onto Twitter until recently, because who knows what goes on Twitter, right? This is a lot of great conversations. I haven't seen anything else new come in. There's a lot of comments about crypto and NFT. I think someone specifically mentioned Giving Block as a good entry point for nonprofits who are interested in accepting crypto donations. From that aspect, Tyler specifically said it's been slow going, but we were able to promote it more around Giving Tuesday.
Nice.
And seeing where that goes. So again, still that market. And I know a lot of people who are deep into that. They're probably more likely to give in crypto.
And don't give up, Tyler. Like, you started it.
No.
It's slow, but it's going to happen, and continue to put it as part of your plans and strategies, and you will see that increase. So congrats.
Exactly. So that brings us up. We're somehow 4 minutes cruising into our end of time on time, which is really, honestly, I'm pretty impressed with ourselves right now. So a couple of things, y'all, as we wrap up here. You got the equations. This recording will be available on demand shortly. You'll get an email with this recording, so you can access that, send it to your peers and colleagues or whoever want to socialize that with. You'll also be getting a couple emails from our teams, both on the Fundraising KIT side as well as Good United. One of those links will include this specific case study. The Trevor Project is probably a sparkling example of we were projecting a certain level of success for them through their first handful of Facebook challenges, and they absolutely shattered that. Again, this is a shining example of when we are wrong, this is great on Good United side. But they really focused on a lot of cool things. They had the monetary value of, obviously you see the stat there. They raised $1.3 million with, but more importantly, they wanted a way to engage with their supporters first and foremost. That case study outlines a lot of the great things there. You'll be getting a link to that. Super valuable. We were really excited about that. And then also, we're going to continue the series. I would have to say that based on the interaction we have in the Q&A, as well as the great conversations here, this is something we want to keep going. We've got October 13th, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do something weird, something new, but a Facebook challenge teardown. And what that means is that we're opening it up to anyone who wants to join this. We're doing a couple key gift card giveaways. Submit your Facebook challenges on Facebook links when you sign up for this. And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind dropping the link for this in the Q&A or in the chat, if that's open. This is something that we're going to try out. We have a team of experts on our optimization and professional services side that's joining me. And we're going to look at 3 different challenges on Facebook that are run by nonprofits. And we're going to say, hey, give you real-time feedback on how to optimize, how to do better, and how to think about strategically to maximize your investment into these specific, fundraising efforts, these growth fundraising events, if you will. I'm super hyped on that. So again, the link should be either in the emails following up or in the chat right now. A free event. Come join us. Come heckle me some more. I would love that. Otherwise, that wraps it up. We are on time, and I'm really proud of that. I did not think we were going to make it, to be honest. So thank you all specifically for joining us for an hour and a half of happy hour. I'm really excited to have been able to share drinks. I did not spill anything. I went through the equivalent of 4 drinks apparently, and I'm still able to talk straight. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us with Fundraising KIT. I had a blast. You had brought so much great stuff to this. To my team behind the scenes, you all know who you are. Lindsay, Casey, Brenna, as well as my sales team, Cassie, Alan, Grace, and Neil, that helped put this on. Phenomenal work, right? Hopefully y'all got some value out of this. Feel free to shoot any 3 of us some DMs on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter with my random thoughts too as well. We're happy to connect. And if there's anything that we touched on today that makes sense to take next steps, that's what us 3 are here for, right? Feel free to reach out to us and see how we can help your nonprofits, whether it be figuring out the proper things to track when it comes to metrics, how to make sense of data, or just getting involved with social media as well. Any final things from you ladies before we call it quits and end on time?
Thank you so much. This has been an incredible experience. Good United is an amazing organization. We are so lucky to partner with you, and we're just so grateful to be here to join this incredible group of attendees with amazing questions, and definitely connect with us on LinkedIn. And I would love to continue the conversation. So thank you so much to all of the people that Adam mentioned. Thank you.
Cool. And thank you, ladies, for helping provide some amazing content. With that, we're ending on time. Thank you all. And make sure you register for October's Nonprofit Growth Lab, where we'll be breaking down and tearing down those Facebook challenges and giving some critical feedback that should help things go along. Thank you. Have a great one. And we'll see you on the other side.